It's the Smart Driving Cars podcast. Glad you're with us. This edition is sponsored by the Smart ETF's Smart Transportation and Technology ETF, symbol MOTO. For more information, head to motoetf.com. I'm Fred Fishkin, along with the Faculty Chair of Autonomous Vehicle Engineering at Princeton University, Alain Kornhauser. Hi, Alain.
Hey, good afternoon, Fred.
Good afternoon. Turning to the latest Smart Driving Cars newsletter. On top is a New York Times piece headlined, Tesla says autopilot makes its cars safer. Crash victims say it kills. Now, the focus of the article is on a crash in California a couple of years ago that killed a 15-year-old riding with his father in a pickup truck that was hit when it changed lanes in front of an oncoming Tesla Model 3. Alan, the video is included with the article, and you have some comments about it.
Yeah, and of course, I mean, it's tragic that the 15-year-old lost his life in this thing, and it's tragic that we have these crashes. And I guess, my bottom line, which we'll get to, is that, my goodness, the automated emergency braking system in these vehicles should keep them from crashing. Darn it. How many times have we said it? We said it with respect to the car that caught fire and two people died in it. I mean, why are these cars crashing? So that, to me, that's kind of the key thing that goes, or one of the key things that goes on here. The second one is with respect to this particular crash. The NHTSA announcement and the requirement now that the data surrounding crashes that involve these vehicles will now become available or need to be released by the companies that make these vehicles that actually capture the data. So for this one, we happen to have some video. So video will be made available in each one of these crashes coming forward, not just this particular one. This one also has some data about the speed of the Tesla. Those kind of data will now be available not for essentially all these type of crashes in the future. More importantly, other data associated with these things. All these vehicles all of these systems maintain time to collision estimates, which really tend to guide when brakes start being applied, and sort of one of the magic numbers that at least one of the companies uses is, once it gets within 1.6 seconds of a collision, so that the time to collision is 1.6 seconds. Assuming, to do a time to collision, you have to assume a future. You have to assume what happens over that 1.6 seconds. Well, it assumes that the car you're traveling in continues on at its current speed, and that the vehicle ahead continues on, or the object ahead continues on at its current speed. That speed may be zero, for example, if it's a brick wall or it's a tree or whatever. But this time to collision with objects in the lane ahead is computed continuously. Now, I suspect in some of these systems as often as once every 20th of a second or 20 times a second. If it's not, it should be. Whether it's at minimum every 10th of a second, possibly every 30th of a second, these computations take place. Once you achieve a threshold of 1.6 seconds, bam, it's really when you start slamming on the brakes. And I think at one point, Mercedes advertised that, what it does is it tightens the seat belt, it closes windows, it closes sunroofs, it brings down a constraining system that keeps the engine from shearing off your legs, those kinds of things. So these vehicles are all doing this computation, this estimation of the time to collision. And of course, that's kind of a key thing. Some assumptions have to be in there in that time to collision, because we're talking about the future. And anytime you're talking about the future, you have to make some assumptions. So, undoubtedly, the Tesla was making time to collisions computations on this. I did not see those data released, but I would expect that those data would be released with respect to going forward because of this NHTSA announcement.
Right, and there is a court case, it appears, ongoing in this case. So
there's a court case ongoing on this case, and I would imagine the lawyers have discovery, and they're asking Tesla, give me the data, and all these sorts of things. I would imagine, sort of in discovery, you ask for everything. You basically ask for everything. Now, whether or not Tesla has it, Tesla kept it, somehow it disappeared, who knows? I don't know. Maybe they've already divulged it. I haven't done that much digging into this case. I'm not involved. I'm just,
Right.
reading the article and what's in the article.
And I think you pointed out the video makes it appear that the pickup truck swerved in or moved into the Tesla's lane.
Well, I mean,
and there's so many questions still that
it's obvious the pickup truck cut off the Tesla. Or I mean, in common terminology on the street, no engineer, scientist, or whatever, if you were driving down there, you'd say you were cut off by the thing. Did the driver see the Tesla coming? Probably not. Otherwise, why would he have done that? The other data that may very well have been captured by this is not only the time to collision with this vehicle, but also the time to collision with the truck that this vehicle was following. I mean, one would expect that the autopilot system is sitting there monitoring the vehicles around it. It can readily see not only the pickup truck, but the truck in front of it. Common things that happen in these things is basically you identify where those things are relative to the nose of the vehicle, so you know how far ahead they are of you, and what the speed of each of those objects are, and your own speed. So the closing speed with not only the pickup truck, but with the vehicle in the neighboring lane. And so knowing the speed of those two vehicles, you also can sit there and compute what the time to collision was between the pickup truck and the truck ahead. That apparently caused the driver to say, oh my goodness, maybe he was bailing out because he was about to crash into the truck ahead of him. All that is all in the data set that certainly will be contained within the releases going forward that have to be given to NHTSA. Why? Because these things are in fact computed by these systems. And so one will have that, okay? So to sort of get some independent evidence as to why that person might have been basically moving over to the right lane and cutting off the Tesla. Okay, so there's a cutoff issue that's associated there. The other interesting piece of this thing is that not only did the pickup truck move over, but you can see from the video that the brake light came on. Okay, so my goodness, a vehicle is moving over onto your lane, cutting you off, and the brake light coming on. I mean, maybe a crash there's even Isaac Newton couldn't have done anything about this one. Why? Because the physics were there. Once you start doing that, there's going to be a crash. Don't have the details, but that could be part of it. So all those things go into that. But there's the other element of this thing is that, and the intent of the article is to try to raise questions about autopilot and what autopilot is doing. Put that aside, I still want to raise the question is, what is the automated emergency braking system doing? Okay, and why didn't the automated emergency braking system, why is it waiting so long? Maybe 1.6 seconds is too late. Maybe there should be a whole sort of approach to this thing. Once you get within 2 seconds time of collisions, the brakes should be starting to apply and you should start to slow down. Or what happens in different relative speed regimes. You know, the Tesla was traveling at 60 miles an hour, you know, and darn it, there doesn't seem to be good enough design guidelines on these automated emergency braking systems to keep them from crashing. And in fact, you know, if one looks at some of the announcements that have come out from the OEMs about these systems, you know, they don't look at them as rear end crash avoidance systems. They look at them as crash mitigation systems. It says, oh, it's okay. I mean, we'll slow down the speed. In fact, the Tesla did slow down. It applied its brakes. It looks to me at the plot, you know, the brakes finally, the calipers finally squeezed at something like just a little bit more than 1 second before the crash. And so that, you know, that did slow it down a little bit. Okay. But there was still a boom. Okay. May not have been a big boom. We should have from the Tesla data exactly what the impact velocity was, because at that last, just before impact, the data should show what the speed of the truck was, what the speed of the car was. We can take that difference. We know what the impact velocity should be in this case. Maybe not all that bad. Unfortunately, even with small crashes, guess what happens? People die, as happened in this thing. Totally unfortunate. So in fact, you know, instead of sitting there worrying about what autopilot does, you know, one should first make sure that the automated emergency braking systems in these vehicles actually work. And that means don't begin to stop. Don't crash. That's what it means to work, not just, oh, crash a little bit, boom, people die. So that's my number 1 point with that. The other deeper points with autopilot is, what is autopilot doing? Letting the Tesla pass on the right. Now, maybe in the jurisdiction where this happened, passing on the right is legal. My guess, I doubt it. Okay.
A lot of questions, legalities, and
darn it,
sure.
The autopilot knew where it was, certainly which state it was on, knew which roadway it was, knew which jurisdiction it was, and should have known whether or not passing on the right is legal. And if it isn't, why is the autopilot going there passing on the right? Why is it not programmed to say, I'm slowing down. I'm not passing on the right. You want to pass on the right, Fred? Your responsibility. You break the law. This one is on Elon. He broke the law. He put in there an algorithm that broke the law.
That allowed the vehicle to do that.
It did it. It didn't allow, it did it on the vehicle.
Right.
It did it. Why wasn't that the discussion in this article? Okay. To me, that, and one needs to address these things. You know, what about speeding? Okay. Now, speeding is a tough one. I sort of put in smart driving cars. Okay, we'll give everybody 9 miles an hour. Okay, but darn it, autopilot should never, when the vehicle is controlled by autopilot or any one of these systems, allow the vehicle to go more than 9 miles over the speed limit. Now, you know, if you talk to like Waymo and others and so on, they tell you, geez, you know, we won't even let these vehicles go above the speed limit.
Right. Do
don't
we
know.
know, Alan, that it was passing on the right, or was it just staying it and then it
No,
was
it's
cut
bad.
off?
Watch the video.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
passing on the right. That's why he hit him.
The other issue,
He was attempting to pass on the right.
the other issue that was brought out, I believe, in the article, is that this 15-year-old was in the passenger seat not wearing a seatbelt. But that's not relevant.
Irrelevant.
Okay. Well, it's not irrelevant to the fatality, but
totally irrelevant.
no. Yeah.
That's an unfortunate part that one has to talk to the family about. That is really unfortunate, but it is irrelevant. The kid didn't need to wear a seatbelt. If Tesla did not pass on the right, the kid would still be alive. Okay, I don't know. Everybody should take a look at it. You reach your own conclusion. That's my conclusion on this. And somehow we need to start having the discussion about this. Where are we going to let these systems break the law? I sort of say, hey, we're going to have to let them do 9 miles an hour over, I think. Otherwise, they're a hazard. And, somebody's going to have to step up and actually say that. Or we're going to have to raise our speed limits by 9 miles an hour or some number like that. Okay? And then say, hey, all this stuff of going, hey, I can go fast. No, you lose your privilege to use the roadway. Okay? The next one is, to what extent should you be allowed to roll through a stop sign? That's illegal too. Hey, to me, I think you can go through a stop sign as long as there's nobody coming. Maybe. Okay? Why stop if there's nobody coming? And if you have all the intelligence, the vision, and so on and so forth to see that nobody's coming, God bless you. Okay? I might argue. Somebody else might argue something else, but the discussion should go on. When should you be allowed to cross a double line? Okay? Double line. Illegal to cross. Some situations really are that, there's blockage here, nobody coming the other way, Okay, nobody coming the other way. Hey, these systems are good enough to know if there's somebody coming the other way. Or depending on how far they can see. And if there's a hump in the road, you can't see over the hump, then stay to the right. You're not allowed to cross it because you couldn't see that there was nobody coming. If you can see nobody's coming, as far as I'm concerned, have a ball. Who cares? But, somebody else other people need to weigh in. Okay? But the discussion needs to be had. These systems are driving the car. If we're driving the car, then we know who to blame, who to give the ticket to, who to make it happen. If they're driving the car, it is the manufacturer's responsibility. It is the responsibility of NHTSA to making sure that, in fact, these things are obeying the law. If they're not obeying the law, that's just my view. What the hell?
And the disclaimer that might say that you still have to be an attentive driver doesn't necessarily take away the responsibility.
Doesn't necessarily take away. It doesn't say you have to. You want to pass on it, right? Turn autopilot off and, take your risk. Right. It's on you. You're the one that's driving.
But the system should not allow it and should not allow you to crash into a tree.
If I say,
else.
Hey, Fred, you drive. And hey, Fred, man, I want to go 100 miles an hour. And you decide to go 100 miles an hour and police stop you. And you say, oh, Alan told me to go give him the ticket. I'm there, yo, Fred, he said, she said, never mind. I never told you that.
Meanwhile, Alan.
I don't know. I mean, just to give some people some things that it's really important in this case.
Right.
Okay. To me, that's way more important. I mean, the kid not wearing a seatbelt or whatever, totally irrelevant. In some sense, totally irrelevant that the guy cut off the Tesla. Tesla should not have been passing on the right. Hey, you pass somebody on the right in the Autobahn in Germany. I mean, everybody driving around you is they're gonna, oh no, you don't. Oh no, you don't. It's just not done. Everybody here in Jersey. I mean, hey, the right. You want to go fast, you go in the right. It's unfortunate, but we've made the decision with our whatever intelligence. If it's somebody, if it's Elon or Mary or somebody else that's making this thing, and it's doing it, and it should know better. Because it knows it's passing on the right. It knows what the speed limit is. It knows there's a double line there. It knows there's a stop sign there. If it doesn't, it's not worth a nickel.
Meanwhile, on that track, Alan, Tesla has now released what it calls full self-driving beta 9. There are various write-ups about it. One in The Verge adds in the headline, "Let the fun begin." And you point out that's a problem.
That's a problem. It is a problem because this is not about fun. Okay? This is not about messing around. Oh, let me see what my what I'm calling it snake oil. I've decided to give it the name snake oil because it's being sold like snake oil. Everybody's up on some little platform. Hey, this isn't about, its manhood or something like that it can do this. This is serious business of trying to get from A to B safely. Okay, and this isn't about fun. It's about maybe some comfort and convenience. I would like my car to do more of the driving that I do and do it safer than I do it. God bless it. Would love to have it. Allow me to relax instead of, absolutely. But it, of course, also has to work. And, they released, first videos. When did they take the first videos? At night with no traffic around. Okay, now it's the easiest piece. And then they, of course, show you going down there. And then, of course, the person taking, doing the ride is all like proud of the darn thing, but grabbing the wheel and doing stuff, every whatever second or minute. If this stuff really worked, it'd be able to get me from A to B or for a certain amount of time. My goodness, even with this is version 9, even with version 18, you better still pay attention. Okay, because there are how many things? Oh my goodness, the person is making a right-hand turn and has to grab on a hold of it because there's a pedestrian and a crosswalk. Hello, you release something that apparently doesn't yield to a pedestrian in the crosswalk that you're turning.
And you call it full self-driving. That's an issue that's been brought up many times.
I don't know.
Already.
I just watched a couple of minutes of it and I said, yes, it is probably very good. Yes, as long as I'm paying attention, it probably drives better than I drive, as long as I can, take over when there's a pedestrian in the right. But my goodness.
I guess the question is, and it's been brought up before, is there something wrong with the customer being told this is full self-driving while Tesla is telling regulators something else altogether, that it's not full self-driving?
If there's confusion in the message, okay, you have no hope of having 100% of the people understand it. Okay. Now, maybe maybe it's impossible to have 100% of anything. I realize that. Okay. But it'll be impossible to get 90%. you know, and 80 per 80 is not good here. It's not good, the 20% out there. And then, what happens? They then kill us. Because it's not only, their lives that are at risk, it's also ours. We may have been in that crosswalk. Come on. I mean, this is serious. It's not fun. It's serious business. It can deliver safety. It can deliver comfort. It can deliver convenience, but it has to be respected.
And maybe it needs to be renamed, perhaps.
I don't know. Maybe we can make something out of that. I don't know. We should think about it, but go ahead.
There are a lot of them out there. Look, the Tesla Model 3 has formally become Britain's best-selling car, period, last month. That means all cars, not just EVs. It's the best-selling car.
Congratulations. It's an enormously great accomplishment. Let's praise that. All the various crash tests with the vehicles, my goodness, the crash absorbency and all that stuff, it gets nothing but the multiple stars. And I don't think they're cheating. Okay. And these systems can make it safer. But if it encourages you to misbehave, the misbehavior that it is encouraging you to do is really ugly. And it is really serious. And it's not just a little slap on the hand. It's,
right.
Come on. It's it's a shame.
Meanwhile, Elon Musk was in New Mexico today. And you know why? Because his friend Richard Branson was there, and he was there to see him off as Branson and 3 other passengers traveled into space aboard Virgin Galactic's Spaceship 2 spaceplane today. Pretty impressive achievement, Al.
Pretty impressive, and I'm sure Elon wasn't pleased that he used Land Rovers to go and go to the spacecraft or whatever they call it. Whereas whenever any of the astronauts get on top of a Falcon 9, where they come in Teslas. So I guess the whole process of whoever's launching gets to put their cars in there. Not that Branson owns Land Rover, but Land Rover, I guess it was originally a British company. I don't know who. Maybe Volkswagen. I don't know who owns it. I should know. Oh, sorry, folks. Educate me, please.
And there's the argument that Jeff Bezos seems to be making that did he really go into space or not?
I mean, hey.
They were weightless for about 4 minutes up there.
Yeah, it's an enormous accomplishment. Okay, it is an enormous accomplishment to have an entity out of the private sector go and do that. And while I haven't really looked, I'm assuming without a bunch of government contracts. And if you sort of watched after they landed in terms of, the entourage to bring the thing in and all that stuff, completely different than bringing in the space shuttle. And I realize it's not the shuttle, and the shuttle was a much bigger, whatever, but it really is impressive that, in fact, private investors have put up the risk capital to create this. And as I put it in smart driving cars, this is basically a moment of just like the Wright brothers. This is don't know where it's going to go. Is it just an amusement park for the rich to go up and have a thrill ride? Possibly in the beginning, that's all it is, but who knows what it's going to lead to. I mean, look at what the reusable Falcon 9 is leading, SpaceX to do. Put all these communication satellites up there, bring internet to across the world with all their LEO satellites and so on. And, they're all being done out of the private sector. And so it's an enormous accomplishment.
And next up, Jeff Bezos on the 20th of this month, if it goes according to schedule.
Yeah, we'll watch that one, and which is more challenging, I would argue, more challenging, more or less elegant. We won't, discuss about elegance, but
will he take a Zooks to travel to the space?
maybe he'll take Zooks instead. Yeah, I mean, the fact that these folks are doing it and then stepping up to the front and saying, maybe they weren't the absolute first ones there, because there have been a lot of test flights and so on and so forth, but basically going out there and saying, this thing is safe enough for us to go there. I mean, we've discussed this with respect to I won't use the word truly, driverless cars providing mobility in places like Trenton. To really do it, to be able to do it affordably and well, they have to be driverless. And at some point, those who do the development are going to be certainly the first ones to ride it driverlessly. And in fact, not only do that, but basically back it up and say, if anything happens, it's on me. Because that's what Branson did today. Anything happens today, it's on me. And in fact, I'm putting myself in there. Okay. Now, it was a great, publicity, whatever, and some, made for movies and Hollywood and all sorts of other things. Which
he does know how to put on a show.
He does know how to, but of course he does, Virgin Records. And so of course he knows that, and nothing wrong with that, because in the end, he said, I have faith in, people have done good work, and let's do it.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's what we're going to have to do to provide, the mobility with all this automation for everybody in communities and cities and so on. It's going to have to do those that do the technology are going to have to stand up in the front and say, hey, at least with respect to the safety piece, it's on me. And that's what Elon has to do if he's really going to, whatever he's promoting in his technology. And I would suspect he really has to step up in this first case that we discussed. He has to say, my goodness, my algorithms were breaking the law, passing on the right. That's on me. That's what he should be saying. He's responsible for that code. I don't know. I guess I'll get a lot of hate mail or whatever. I don't know. I just one way to look at it. I'm throwing it out there.
I mean, if the technology is there and able to prevent these things from happening, why isn't it always doing it? We've talked about that before, whether it was Tiger Woods hitting a tree or many other instances as well. Why doesn't it work?
Why doesn't it work? And it's not that it got sun in my eyes, the dog ate my homework, cut it out. That car knew it was passing vehicles on the right. And it was about to pass this truck on the right. And it was shooting down that lane, passing those things on the right. Sorry, I don't know. I don't know what a judge is going to say in this thing. Seems to me pretty clear. I don't know, black and white. What am I missing? Maybe in this jurisdiction, passing on the right was legal.
We'll see. The attorneys will. The attorneys can come up with.
Well, I don't know.
I don't know.
The attorneys are bright, but I can't say much about the article. The article didn't point that out.
Right. That's true.
I mean, why not? I mean, if you really want to attack autopilot, attack it for breaking the law. Okay, and then the crash is caused because the automated emergency braking system doesn't work and isn't programmed properly to not crash. It should be programmed to not crash. Come on, Society of Automotive Engineers. Come on, NHTSA. Recall these things.
Make it happen. We'll be back with more, but first, this is a good time to remind you about our sponsor, the Smart ETFs, Smart Transportation and Technology ETF, symbol MOTO. To get more info, head to motoetf.com. On the website, look for the white paper called The Smart Transportation Revolution. It's under the Insights and News tab. Lots of great information to help you make informed decisions about investing. ETFs, you probably know, can be a good way to spread risk with investments and focus on a particular category of stocks. The website again is motoetf.com. Back to the latest Smart Driving Cars newsletter. Another piece in The Verge by Andrew Hawkins is titled, Welcome to Simulation City and the Virtual World Where Waymo Tests Its Autonomous Vehicles. There's a video here too, Alan.
Yeah, there's a video there, and apparently, Waymo gave The Verge, a good description of their simulation system, and I haven't seen it, I haven't reviewed it, and whatever. I think simulation is really important. Simulation systems are really valuable. Chen Yi and his PhD dissertation focused on, being able to use virtual reality to be able to generate testing sets for the AI for these things. That's, the virtual world is really good. We've praised NVIDIA for their developments and advances in the simulation techniques here. And they claim that they, simulated 15 gazillion miles or whatever the number is, some huge number of miles. But again, I sure hope the 15 gazillion weren't of the, of the type that the video was released, because the short video is out there with a car going down a freeway, everything, just fine. Thank you. No deer jumping out in front of anything or whatever, or nobody cutting anybody off and then hitting the brake as they cut somebody off to see what the heck's going to happen, or whether to do, and whether, and I know that they test those corner cases, but those corner cases last 10 seconds. The whole clip of that Tesla crash is 6 seconds long. And if you sit there and you watch it for the 6 seconds, everything's hunky-dory until about, 1.6 seconds before collision, or, something like that, whatever, And so the things when you need to be able to really do the reaction to avoid a crash, something that you didn't expect is, takes place over a few hundred feet, a few seconds. So you don't have to go, simulate this thing for gazillion miles. All right.
Well, we know that Waymo is out there in the real world and has been for some time, and in Chandler as well, and I guess now San Francisco.
Yeah, and they do, and I've even argued on these. I'm sure people have rolled their eyes where I say, whenever one sees the disengagement reports in California that have to be submitted by all these companies every year, having high disengagement is not a bad thing. because it must be that you're testing this thing in really critical cases, and darn it, you had to come in and intervene. You don't.
If there are no disengagements, what are you learning, right?
You're relearning what you know. Okay. The big question is not because of Mr. Rumsfeld, Princeton grad, but you don't know what you don't know, which is, of course, the challenge of simulations. Because guess what? Simulations is all stuff that somebody wrote code, programmed, knew, anticipated, put it in there so that you would. What about, I keep talking about the curveball that Mother Nature throws at us. Boom! Where'd that slider come from? Which is always the tough part. Well, we do variation, yeah, sure, but it's still within the realm of whatever you're doing. So that's why you really end up having to go out there in reality. You have to go out there in reality with humans overseeing it, because they probably can react better to that whatever thing that happened better than these systems, at least until we get to a point in which, my goodness, it's gotten to be that good. Then we're out of the testing, and we should start capturing some societal value out of this thing, as opposed to putting more miles on simulations and more reports on some shelf. Let's get some value out of this investment. Societal value.
That's what you're pushing for.
That's what we're pushing for. We want to do it in Trenton. I'm laser focused on making it happen in a Trenton of this world, because to me, that's where the folks really, I think they'll really benefit from this mobility. And let's put it in where people are just not indifferent. I mean, this is life-changing. Let's do it there.
The European Union, Alan, has fined BMW and Volkswagen $1 billion for running an emissions cartel since the 1990s. I mean, we've talked about the VW scandal before, and you liken this, you take a cautionary approach, telling the automakers that this cannot happen when it comes to the use of this new technology.
Yeah, it can't happen. I mean, when you find that you have a problem and you don't really match up to what is expected of you, let everybody know. Everybody will get around and help you fix it. This, with respect to all this automation, it's all about safety. Maybe one of the good things that can come out of the lead article, that crash, poor kid died, whatever, so unfortunate, is that maybe now, Tesla and all the other car manufacturers will put a line of code in there that says, don't pass on the right. If you're going faster than the traffic on your left, slow down to that speed. I mean, that's what, 3 lines of code? Trivial. Okay, you want to pass? Okay, change lanes, get over in a passing lane, pass on. If you're in England, I realize it's opposite. Okay, thank you, England. But it's easy to change that line of code in England, make it work in England too. And also with respect to the speed thing, darn, I think that that's the way Tesla actually operates on speed. That it doesn't. I think. I don't have one. I don't use one. I'm not sitting there, monitoring this stuff. But I think they've done it there. But those are the big ones.
Alan, you highlight a report in Barron's that's titled "The Wrong Way to Pay for Infrastructure," and this talks about congestion pricing and efficient pricing for trucks.
Yeah, and that's our friend Cliff Winston. He's there. It's congestion pricing, or I in my class, I don't call it congestion pricing. So sorry, Bill Vickery. Yeah, I don't call it that. I call it value pricing. Okay. Congestion just sounds like a negative word. I mean, what is it with me in words? I don't want to call these things level 1, 2, 3. I want to call them smart driving cars. I mean, I have a problem. I guess I was not an English major, so I know nothing about words. So trust me, but congestion pricing just sounds like, it's really value pricing. It's pricing the commodity at its point such that the maximum value can be extracted from the commodity. The commodity is the roadway, is the bridges, is the lanes, is the capacity of that thing. So I always prefer to call it value pricing. And if you call it value pricing, then it's value. People might go in there with a little bit more of a smile as opposed to congestion pricing. I mean, must hate that just by the sound of the word. I don't know. Anyway, think about it.
The power companies call it peak and off peak and things like same concept.
Yeah, same concept, sure. And it's not that, if you're indifferent in terms of whether you go and peak and off peak, then geez, let's make it attractive for you to go off peak, and then you're no longer indifferent. You actually get, you get more value to you because you did it off peak, because you were indifferent peak or off peak. And guess what? You also add value to the person who has to do it then. And that, I don't know. To me, it sounds better, but anyway, whatever.
Also from the newsletter, Alan, Hyundai has completed its purchase of an 80% stake in Boston Dynamics for $880 million. SoftBank will hold on to 20% through one of its affiliates still.
Yeah, I mean, it seems to me that $1 billion for Boston Dynamics, I don't know. I haven't been really closely watching the robotics world, but my goodness, that doesn't seem like it's too extravagant of a price, given what the AV companies and technology things have been going for, have been sort of valued at. And I look at what they've done in creating some of these robots that, I mean, I'm not necessarily a fan of the humanoid robot type things, but my goodness, they're good. And I linked one of my favorite Boston Dynamics videos showing them dancing, the dancing robots, and I'm there. Whoa, I mean, it's nothing but code. It's doing that. It's nothing but code, balance, and whatever, and then being able to do actuators and do precisely exactly what you need to do, and having the sensors to know exactly what everything is, and boom, and pulling it off to be able to balance. And it seems to me you can do that. Then maybe what Branson did is like almost trivial. The old rocket science is now, robotic science is what that company does. So I don't know. And of course, I raised the question as to, whether this is a national security sort of implications on this. I mean, the technology that's involved in doing all that is, that's like that to be a U.S. asset. But I guess that's only because I'm a naturalized American citizen, so.
Well, SoftBank had the bulk of it before. They've just reduced their stakes. So it's not like it's changing all that much in Japan and Korea.
Yeah, understood, but understood.
But nevertheless,
and maybe out of this whole thing, SoftBank needs. I don't know. I don't want to comment on SoftBank's balance sheet.
Well, that's going to do it for this week. Thank you to our sponsor, the Smart ETFs, Smart Transportation and Technology ETF. The ticker symbol for the ETF is MOTO. You can get more info at motoetf.com. You can find us at smartdrivingcar.com. Also on Anchor FM, Spotify, TuneIn, Apple, Google, Spreaker, SoundCloud, wherever you turn to for podcasts. Smart speakers can play us too. You can find my tech reports at textination.com. I'm Fred Fishkin along with Alain Kornhauser. Thank you for listening or watching, and please stay safe.
And have a good week, and congratulations to Italy today for winning the Euro Cup against England on a shootout. It was what a match.